So at a key moment early in the movie Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, our hero's friend, Marcus Brody, crystallizes the search for the Holy Grail this way. The search for the cup of Christ is the search for the divine in all of us. But the real quest in the movie is Indy's search for reunification with his last living parent, his father. The third outing of Indiana Jones followed the masterpiece Raiders of the Lost Ark and the not-so-masterpiece Temple of Doom. And the Last Crusade, which is not just about the medieval Christian holy wars, the Crusades, is more about a metaphorical battle for something much greater. Now, pausing to return to Paul's letter to the Ephesians today, a very important message is given to us about wisdom. It is teed up from the message from Proverbs, which speaks to wisdom with a capital W, or more specifically, wisdom literature. That is a subsection of the Old Testament and non-canonical books, that's the books that didn't make the final cut in the Bible, that speak to the aspect of God that handles the intangibles of our life: morals, ethics, decision-making, right from wrong, wise from unwise. You find reference to wisdom in books of Job, Ecclesiastes, the Song of Songs, and of course Proverbs. There's another book that is considered part of the Apocrypha, sometimes only heard in Episcopal churches or Catholic churches. That book's called The Wisdom of Solomon because, as you might guess, it's about King Solomon and his pursuit of wisdom. He famously prayed to God to be granted that power, the ability to choose between right and wrong like God could. Wisdom is always, interestingly enough in the Bible, used with feminine pronouns. And because wisdom of God is so much like the Holy Spirit in the New Testament, it often helps to think of the Holy Spirit as feminine, to balance the God the Father talk. But I digress. The letter to the Ephesians picks up on this wisdom talk when it says to us, be careful then how you live, not as unwise people, but as wise. Paul assumes that we know what it means to be wise or not. That's a trait of God that comes with age and experience. How do we know for sure? Might we just ask God directly for wisdom like King Solomon did? No, it's a little harder than that. So helpfully, the ability to make wise choices actually forms most of the moral backbone of the Indiana Jones movie, The Last Crusade. Now, on its surface, the movie is a film of good versus evil, archaeologists versus Nazis. It's also a treasure hunt, a quest, following clues and torn diary pages, except, as the director Steven Spielberg is quoted as saying, the real quest is for the Father. The search for the Holy Grail is the search for the Father. All throughout the film, Indiana Jones is only following clues because they lead to his imprisoned father, played by Sean Connery. He is tempted in the early scenes of the movie to delight in a treasure hunt, the solving of clues in a library or the sewers underneath Venice, riddles written in his dad's diary. But for Indiana Jones, the search is really for resolution with a father who he has been estranged from a father who seemed to have not cared for him the way his late mother had. And you think of how many children follow in their parents' line of work in sometimes a futile attempt to either please their fathers or their mothers, or in some cases trying to compete with them. Has Indy been on just such a quest his whole life, perhaps? Has he been searching in futility for voodoo statues, temples of doom, Cross of Coronado, the Ark of the Covenant, countless other possessions that, in his words, belong in a museum? These items, these archaeological finds, are simply tangible finds, tangible solutions, things he can hang that famous brown hat on and find fleeting satisfaction in. It's as if he's saying, if I can't find the love of my father, maybe I can find these objects, and then I'll have peace. But that's not what he has. Because Spielberg is right, the quest for the Grail is really the quest for the Father. That's the true Grail for Indy. So in their entanglements with Nazis, there has to be vixens and generals and tanks and betrayals. And then finally there is mortality. The two Joneses, senior and junior, have occupied the same earth, but as passing ships in the night, as we see in the flashback at the beginning of the movie, where the young Indiana Jones is inspired to follow his father's career path. But by the time we get towards the end of the movie, where they stand on a cliff near Alexandretta in Turkey, the fruits of their search really start to pay off. It's there at the edge of the cliff that Henry Sr. peers over, where it seems his son has just gone over the side to meet his end. And he laments and says, "I've lost him." All his life searching for objects and things, and really he discovers in this moment that after a rekindling of sorts of a relationship with his erstwhile son, it was all too late. That is, of course, until John Williams plays the Indiana Jones theme and we see our hero, Junior, climbing up the side of the cliff, still alive, and reveals he survived the crash of the tank. And so they hug, and in that brief, heartwarming hug, the quest seems to be over, the solution to the puzzle complete. But actually, that sets up the father and son for their greatest challenge, which will be a mixture of wisdom and mortality. So later, with his father shot and mortally wounded, inside that final temple, Indy now is forced at gunpoint to use his father's clues to solve the riddles that will take him across a vast expanse into the chamber that holds the Holy Grail. And here we find the biblical charge to use wisdom in its most literal form in the movie. A knight, a 700-year-old knight, protects the Grail, and he shows Indiana Jones an array of different grails. You must choose, but choose wisely. There's that notion again that wisdom involves choices. How will we ever know the right choice? Well, evil in the movie is personified in a villain named Donovan, who reveals the ramifications of the wrong choice. As Jewish leaders once did, Donovan assumes Jesus Christ is a king on the model of David, opulent, resplendent in gold and jewels. So that's the Grail he picks. But the wisdom of God is that Jesus is not that kind of king. He's the son of a tekton, that Greek word that we translate as carpenter, but could mean somebody who works with their hands, a day laborer. Jesus is the son of peasants in Nazareth, the least and the last expected to be a king of anything, because that is how God's kingdom works. So Indy makes the right choice, chooses the correct Grail, the one that shows humility. And that's not quite the kind of wisdom, however, that the movie is interested in, nor is it the kind of wisdom, ultimately, that God is interested in. It's not simply about solving a puzzle and choosing the right answer. It's more than that. It's about transcendent wisdom that is centered on love, intelligence, and, in this case, family. When the Grail is carried too far from its source, the ground opens up and swallows the villains, just like the Ark of the Covenant did in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, Indy finds himself dangling with one hand as his father tries to pull him up. Junior, give me your other hand.
Junior, give me your other hand. I can't hold on.
I can get it. I can almost reach it, Dad.
Indiana? Indiana? Let it go.
Let it go. The son hears his father and realizes his quest is over. Let the Grail go. Let the object fall. The real prize, the real wise choice is right there reaching out for him. Henry Sr., soon after, says he finds illumination on the search for the Holy Grail, and that might be a fruit of wisdom. And we find once again, through the movies, that even the simplest of moments in a major Hollywood film can illuminate aspects of our faith that we might need to be reminded of, where through wise choices and seeking to share God's wisdom, the quest for truth and love can transcend all we hope to obtain. Amen.